Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Future. Ba'ashem Rachakodash. The Future is Here. And this is pretty much centered around some articles I was reading. And just the thought of this global economy and the way that it's heading right now. Pretty much, the stage is pretty much set for the mark of the beast, because these devils have used this pandemic, as they call it, to push forward their agenda. Because they have an agenda, they're going to move forward with it. Doesn't matter who out there agrees with it or not, who's for it or not. They have an agenda. They're pushing forward. The Rothschild, which is the head family among these international bankers, their patriarch, so to speak, Maya Amschel Bauer, whose name was changed to Rothschild, made a statement. He said, "Give me control of a nation's money and I care not who makes the laws." Because from the moment they got their hands on these finances, they were pushing for global domination. They were pushing to get the whole world dependent upon them, to put pretty much a financial stranglehold on the world and on the people to control them. So ever since then, they've been planning on how best to get the world dominated and to bring everything under one centralized law, government, religion, monetary fund, for lack of better words. And although back then, when they were putting all this together, the technology back in the 1500s, 1600s, so on and so forth, was not as advanced as it is now. And this advancement of this technology has allowed them to push forward their agenda at a much faster rate. Daniel chapter 12 verse 4. "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end," meaning the Bible. "Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." So with this knowledge that was being increased, back then they didn't have the means. They had the idea, they had the foresight of what they wanted to do and what they wanted to establish, but the infrastructure to achieve this really wasn't there until this technology increased to what you see it today. And through the invention of the internet, although it's destroying them in a sense of them being exposed, it's also helping them push this global agenda forward. Because one of the final steps of the so-called New World Order is to expose it and expose its secrets to the world, and to expose that the God that they worship is Satan. Some circles among them say Lucifer, which we understand that Lucifer is not the spiritual demon Satan. Lucifer represents the Edomites, these international bankers who call themselves Illuminati, Alumbrados, which means enlightened ones, which goes back to the Lucifer, son of the morning, old day star. So now that this technology is where it is, now they're able to push their agenda forward a lot faster. And this so-called pandemic, which they call, COVID-19, they have managed to put the world on lockdown and to pretty much stifle the economy or the economic growth of the world as a whole, to push forward their global monetary currency, which is going to be pushed through the microchip and the technology of online. This is why you have what's called a global economy. And this global economy is being pushed on a wide scale throughout the planet. This is why the name of this lesson is "The Future is Here." Because our forefathers, they seen this. They seen the prophecy, or they seen the plans of world global domination and the hardships that the people of the world, especially the Israelites, were going to suffer in these times, and in the expansion of this global monetary new world order type system. And like I said, this pandemic, or as they call it, Esau calls it, is helping them further this agenda, because it's all mostly based around economy. The term bullshit, money talks, bullshit walks. Well, that is the case, because money is a defense, and money answereth all things. So that's why that devil made that statement, "Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws." So it says here, what does COVID-19 mean for the global economy? Well, it pretty much means that they use this crisis, or pandemic as they call it, to shut down the world, stifle the economy, so that they can push forward the new currency, which would be digitalized. And everything will be online. Every transaction, everything that you do would be online. For what purpose? For tracking. And a lot of these corporations, pharmaceutical companies, big corporations, large corporations, have invested a lot of money into these technologies, because they know that is the wave of the future. It's just like you have stocks. You have some stocks that are garbage. You have some stocks that are very good stocks, to where you can make good money off of it. And the insiders trade on the good, stocks, to be able to make a whole lot more money. So these giant corporations with the Fortune 500s, the international bankers or banking families, have invested much capital, into this global currency, global agenda that they got going on. And that's why you have certain individuals set up, like Bill Gates and others, that push forward this agenda. And this is, paper money, which is going, the way of, actually going into, what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be extinct. Now, they may keep some of it just to, put in museums and stuff like that, just to show what the currency used to be. But they're pushing for this global currency to be online. And the way that they're doing it is through implanting microchips into people. All right. Now, I want to get a couple of precepts before I read this article that I have. This is Isaiah 42:9. It says, "Behold, the former things are come to pass," meaning there were certain things that were spoken of in prophecy that happened. All throughout history, from the beginning of time that the prophets were here, there were many prophecies that were spoken. And there were many prophecies that came and went and happened. It says, and new things do I declare. But in the midst of that, you also had the Lord showing the prophets new things that were happening and coming to pass. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. So before they actually happen, the Lord tells us about them. Why? There's another chapter in Isaiah where it says that the Lord does these things so that you won't jump up and say that your idol was the one that gets the credit for this particular prophecy happening or this particular thing happening. All right, and moving on to the 46th chapter in the 9th verse. Remember the former things of old, for I am the Most High, there is none else. I am the Most High, and there is none like me. And the former things are what? All the former things that happened, different prophecies, the different events that took place on the earth, the different empires that came and went, so on and so forth. Declaring the end from the beginning, because in the beginning, when you had prophets at the beginning of the world, they spoke of the end times. They spoke of certain things that are happening even to this very day. They spoke of the beginnings of empires, the ending of empires. They spoke of the increase that Israel would have and the downfall of the nation of Israel, so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native American Indians, from the beginning. And from the very beginning, when the prophets were there, they started speaking about the end. Now you're talking about thousands of years ago. It says, and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done. So there are things written that have not yet happened from ancient times. And we're still waiting for those things to happen. But the majority of these prophecies had already passed. And we're living in a time where the prophecies are popping like popcorn. You know, never in history has there ever been a time like this. You know, that's why it says that this time is going to be the worst time. It's not going to be any time like it, as it says in Daniel the 12th chapter. Because the times that are coming, everything is going to be happening one after another, one after another, one after another. You know, two, at a time. So everything you see happening now is being pushed at an exponential rate. Saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Because what we see is the Most High, Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, doing his thing. Causing his prophecies to speak. You know, allowing these things to happen, so that the world can know, which the world ain't going to get it. Even the spirit of truth that the world cannot receive. But the prophets and the elect can see that this is the very same time where the Lord is going to come to deliver his elect. All right. Now going to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7, verse 12. For he hath given me certain knowledge of the things that are, namely to know how the world was made and the operation of the elements. It says the beginning, ending, and the midst of times. So the Lord showed King Solomon the beginning of times, the ending of times, and everything that happened in the middle of these times. So these are prophecies that took place. These are mysteries that most people never get a chance to understand. You know, the beginning of the creation, how everything was created, who created it, how it was created, in what fashion. You know, going according to the blueprint of the Most High, the mysteries of the rivers and the serpent, in the Garden of Eden being a man, and how Adam and Eve fell and the reason why they fell, and going down through Cain and all the way through the sons of the Most High falling from that great estate, to the flood, to just going on and on and on. Until modern times. So King Solomon saw all of that. He saw the Byzantine Empire. He saw the Roman Empire. He saw the Greek Empire. He saw the Medo-Persian Empire. He saw the revolt of the Maccabees against the Greeks. He saw the Hellenization of Israel. He saw all of that from the beginning all the way to the very end. It says the alteration of the turning of the sun and the change of seasons. So he understood all of these things because he was a man of great wisdom. They said there was no man greater than him. He was wiser than all the wise men of the East. You know? And one of the main things he knew about was what? The times. And how the times had a beginning, how they had a middle time, and how they had the ending times. And we're at the very end of the ending times. 2nd Ezra 14:3. Then said he unto me, in the bush I did manifestly reveal myself unto Moses, and talked with him, when my people served in Egypt. And I sent him and led my people out of Egypt, and brought him up to the mount of where I held him by me a long season, and told him many wondrous things, and showed him the secrets of the times and the end, and commanded him, saying, these words shalt thou declare, and these shalt thou hide. So the Most High showed him the secret of times and the end also. But there were certain things that Moses did not write down. There were certain things that King Solomon didn't write down. There were certain things that the prophets didn't write down. The angel that was speaking with the Apostle John, when he heard what the 7 thunders uttered, he was about to write it. And the angel said, no, don't write that. Because there are certain things that are not meant for us to know yet. That's why it says that we prophesy in part, because we know in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away with. Then shall we know even as we are known. So when the kingdom is established, we're going to be able to see and understand everything that we don't know of right now. But what we know of right now is enough for us to get to salvation. So you brothers out there that's trying to get deeper than deep, you don't need to know about all those things. The main thing we need to know is what? Things that accompany salvation. Because the goal first is to get to salvation, not to be super wise to show the world how deep you are. That's not what this knowledge is about. This knowledge is about teaching His word so that the elect can hear it, be sealed, and be delivered, because it pleased the Lord by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. So that is the main goal. All right? Because more is showed unto us than the prophets knew back then, than great wise men knew back then. There are men of wisdom in the past that would have loved to look into the things that we are able to see now and are not able to see them. Why? Because it is not given to them back then. Now, the prophets that were back then that prophesied these things are here in this time, and they know some of the things that they wrote back then in the past. And they understand it now. But there's no remembrance of who each individual was in the past, you know, to know, okay, this brother was Jeremiah, or that brother was Isaiah, and this brother was Malachi and Zephaniah and Obadiah, you know. So this is from Global Research. It says USA plan. Militarized control of population. The National COVID-19 Testing Action. And this is what it's about. This article pretty much summarizes, you know, what the goal of these international bankers are. And a lot of the funding that goes into this research and the so-called solution to fix this problem all go back to these international bankers, these Fortune 500 families, these people in big, large, gigantic corporations, the pharmaceutical company, the medical industry, so on and so forth. So it says the Rockefeller Foundation, right there, you could just close the book. The Rockefeller Foundation has presented the National COVID-19 Testing Action Plan, because this is their baby right here. This is what they're going to use to push this whole thing. Now, I'm not sure if that was David Rockefeller. Let me see if I can find. I can't think of the exact quote. Just bear with me. Just bear with me. All right, I got one here. Got one here. This is the devil right here. David Rockefeller. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the new world order. And they have the most perfect major crisis that anyone could ever have, and that is this pandemic, as they call it. Let's see if we can open this up. Let me see if this is the one. It says, we are grateful. This is this devil, David Rockefeller. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Time Magazine, and other great publications, which they bought because in 1921, when the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, was set up, the first thing they did was buy all forms of media so that they can control what goes out into the public. It says, whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years, because now they don't care because they already established the infrastructure that they need. So now the last part of their agenda is what? Openness, all secrets being let out. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practice in past centuries. David Rockefeller. And there's another one. Let me see what this one says. All right, this is a good one too. Some even believe we, the Rockefeller family, are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States. And these are actual quotes that these devils make, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. Keep in mind those three: integrated global, political, and economic structure, because that is their whole plan. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I am proud of it. So these devils are pushing this, and it's all about a global, political, and economic structure, because everything else that comes after that, once you got this in control, you can control the religions and all of that stuff. All right, now let me see. There's one where he said, let me see something. Just bear with me 1 second. Maybe it wasn't David Rockefeller. Or was it Henry Kissinger? I just saw his name pop up. Let me see. Just bear with me 1 second. That's a good one. But that's not the one. Just bear with me, Salakia. That's a good one too. These devils, boy. These devils, boy. Salaki, brothers, just bear with me 1 second. Alright, I can't find it, so I can't remember exactly who said it. But something along the lines of, we will have a world order voluntary or by force. I just can't think of who said that. Alright, so let's read these two and then we can go back to the article. This is Henry Kissinger, that devil. The plan. Today, Americans would be outraged if UN troops enter Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told there was an outside threat from beyond, whether real or promulgated. Because this is what it is. This is how they play games. It says that threatened our very existence. It is then that all people of the world will pledge with world leaders to deliver them from this evil. Pandemic, that's part of it. The one thing every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by their world governments. All right, and now let's go to the other one. Kissinger, control oil and you control nations, control food and you control the people. You know, like I said, I can't think of the other one, but that's all right. So it says, the Rockefeller Foundation has presented the national COVID-19 test in action, indicating the pragmatic steps to reopen our workplace and our communities. However, it is not simply a matter of health measures as it appears from the title. The plan that some of the most prestigious universities, listen, have contributed to this plan, Harvard, Yale, Johns Hopkins, and others, which are all owned lock, stock, and barrel by these international bankers, prefigures a real hierarchical and militarized social model, because the hierarchy is who? The international bankers, and they're using the military to push this on who? On society. At the top, the Pandemic Testing Board, PTB, akin to the War Production Board. So this pandemic board is likened to the War Production Board that the United States created in World War II. So this was something created for what? For World War II. So this is something created for now, which is all part of the same beast. You know, it's all part of the military. It says the Pandemic Testing Board would consist of leaders from business, government, and academia. See? Business, government, and academia. So these things that they're pushing on the world are things that are controlled by the government and by these large corporations that pretty much run the world. Government representatives were not in the first row, but finance and economic representatives being listed in order of importance. Meaning what? The ones that give the most money or the ones that are most prestigious. This Supreme Council would have the same power to decide productions and services with an authority similar to that conferred to the President of the United States in wartime by the Defense Production Act. So pretty much this Pandemic Testing Board has the same authority as the President to defend America through this act in time of war, which this is the time of war. And how can they do that? By declaring a state of emergency and putting FEMA in charge of the so-called United States. It says the plan calls for 3 million U.S. citizens to be COVID-19 tested weekly, 3 million, and the number should be raised to 30 million per week within 6 months. The goal is to achieve the ability to COVID-19 test 30 million people a day, which is to be realized within a year. And what did they do? What did Trump say? He said, we're going to use the military and other forces. Once the vaccine is what? Once the vaccine is manufactured towards the end of the year. It says, for each test, a fair market reimbursement, e.g. $100 for all COVID-19 assays is expected. The billions of dollars a month of public money will be needed. The Rockefeller Foundation and its financial partners will help create a network for the provision of credit guarantees and the signing of contracts with suppliers, that is, large companies that manufacture drugs and medical equipment. There you go with your big pharma, your big corporations, controlled by the international bankers, the Fortune 500 families, these large corporations. According to the plan, the Pandemic Control Council is also authorized to create a pandemic response corps, a special force. Remember he said, and other forces? He said the military and other forces. So here it is, you got the Pandemic Control Council that created Pandemic Response Corps, a special force, not surprisingly called Corps, like the Marine Corps, which with a staff of 100 to 300,000 components. They would be recruited among Peace Corps and American Corps volunteers, officially created by the U.S. government to help developing countries, and among National Guard military personnel. The members of the Pandemic Response Corps would receive an average gross wage of $40,000 per year. A state expenditure of $4 to $12 billion a year is expected for it. So now we're starting to see how they're going to be militarizing things. You know, now there was this series I was watching, I believe it was on Netflix. This was years ago. I can't think of the name of the series, but I do remember in it that there was some type of virus that was pushed out, and there was a pharmaceutical company that was pushing their vaccines and stuff, or something that they had, but that particular pharmaceutical company had a actual military, private military working for them to help them, push their stuff. I can't remember the name of the series, but nevertheless, the pandemic response body would above all have the task of controlling the population with military-like techniques. And this is how we know, we're starting to understand now even more how these devils are gonna how this is gonna come out, play out in the book of 2nd Ezra chapter 16 and verse 67. We could start at. It says, behold, the Most High himself is the judge. Fear him. Leave off from your sins and forget your iniquities, to meddle no more with them forever. So shall the Most High lead you forth and deliver you from all trouble, because the time of Jacob's trouble is coming. We're in the beginning stages, but it's going to get tighter and tighter. But the Most High is the judge overall. So no matter what these international bankers and these Edomites, these Luciferians, or whatever you want to call them, have planned, they can only go so far, because the Most High is in control, not them. It says, for behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you. So we're starting to see, in more detail how this is going to happen. You got the martial law. You got the national emergency declared. You have FEMA troops that have pretty much in control. Then you have these Pandemic Control Council, which is set up by big pharma and these different corporations that created a pandemic response corps that are going to use military-like techniques to get this vaccine and all of these so-called precautions that they need to so-called safeguard the people. It says, through digital, let's go back, and feed you being idle. And how are they going to feed you being idle? Not being able to move. And what is that? Those are concentration camps. which back in 2008, 2009, 2010, we were being ridiculed for even saying the word concentration camp, martial law. But now that it's here, we're in martial law right now. It's just a light martial law, which is about to get tighter. Now, the voices that were mocking and ridiculing and scoffing are no longer doing that. And feed you being idle with things offered unto idols, because this is what they're pushing. They're pushing their idol or their idols, which is to establish this new world order. And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot, because they don't care if you consent or not. It's better for them that they don't have to use force on you, but nevertheless they're coming with force. And these what you call it that are being set up are given power, like the government, like the military, like the presidency, so to speak, even though we know that those are all set up, but they have a serious power, that's with them to be able to realize these things and push these things. It says, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. So Jake is the ones that are most in danger of this new world order. And you know how they feel about us, so-called Negros, Latinos, and Native American Indians. To them, we're just expendable. It says, they shall be like madmen, sparing none. They're going to have that military type power. And to be able to push this and realize it. And the backing of the military also, the National Guard, to push this stuff. Remember, Trump said that once the vaccine is ready, they're going to have the National Guard and other forces to help distribute it. It says, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord, for they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Because remember, they're pushing to make this thing mandatory. They gone to these people's houses, which they showed, and they forcibly removed these people from their homes to go get tested. So what do you think is going to happen when they have the vaccine? They're going to push that. The census they're pushing, because they're getting everything geared for the coming months. It says, then shall they be known who are my chosen. Why? Because the Lord is going to cause something to happen to where his elect are going to be protected from all of this. Because the Most High is the judge, not Esau. It doesn't matter what demented plan they have in their mind. The Lord overall is in charge, not them. And they shall be tried as the gold in the fire. Hear, O ye my beloved, saith the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Behold, the days, plural, of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same. So there's going to be some serious times coming. And this little shit that happened with this, as they call it, a pandemic, the lockdown, that pretty much was nothing, compared to what's coming. That was just like a light thing, and people were losing it at that. So just imagine when they really roll out the real shit. Be ye not afraid, neither doubt, for the Most High is your guide. And this is why the Lord is guiding us in these times on what to do. Mentally preparing. Sitting down and meditating upon these things, the things that are coming. Getting into them scriptures so that the knowledge could be the stability of our time. Knowledge and wisdom could be the stability of our times and strength of salvation. Because through these words and the trust and faith in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is where salvation is coming through to the elect. And the guide of them who keep my commandments and precepts, saith the Lord power. Let not your sins weigh you down, and let not your iniquities lift up themselves. Woe be unto them that are bound with their sins and covered with their iniquities, like as a field is covered over with bushes, and the path thereof covered with thorns, that no man may travel through. It is left undressed and is cast into the fire to be consumed therewith, because 2/3 of Israel in this country will be consumed. So now going back, it says the pandemic response body would above all have the task of controlling the population with military-like technique. They're not going to be playing. says they're going to be like madmen, sparing none. And we're seeing it. We knew how it was going to come. We knew about how they were going to use the military, but now we're starting to see even more and more clearer how they're giving these peoples that are creating these groups that power like the military, backed up by the National Guard and other forces, as Trump said in his speech, through digital tracking and identification systems. And this is the main thing, digital tracking and identification system, because they're looking to make a global economy push through the internet by the push of a key, data entries on a computer, making a global economy and doing away with the paper currency and coin currency of the world, to digitalize everything and to put everything inside of a microchip to keep track and control of the people. It says in work and study places, in residential areas, in public places, and when traveling. Now we notice that they're starting to open things back up so people get back what? To work, to the gym, to study places like the library, the schools, in residential areas, in public places. The parks are opening up, the beaches are opening up, and what? And when traveling. Systems of this type, the Rockefeller Foundation recalls, are made. The Rockefeller Foundation recalls are made by Apple, Google, and Facebook. So they're all funded by these big corporations that are controlled by the international bankers. According to the plan, information, and this goes what? Into the mark of the beast in Revelation 13 and 16. And he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And this is the only way you're going to be able to operate in this system if the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Shai is not with you. Is by taking this man's mark to make yourself to be able to use his system to feed yourself, to work, so on and so forth. Otherwise, you're going to have to go off grid. So it says, according to the plan, information of on individuals relating to their state of health. See, they're using that state of health thing to push this agenda forward, and their activities will remain confidential. Yeah, right. Whenever possible. It says, however, they would all be centralized in a digital platform co-managed by the federal, state, and private companies. Come on, man. However, they would all be centralized in a digital platform co-managed by the federal, state, and private companies. Because when you go, and we're going to say this for the millionth time, when you go to the word mark, the word mark goes back to the Greek word charagma. Some say charagma, some say charagma. It doesn't matter. Potato's potato. A stamp, an imprinted mark. This is the actual microchip. It has a root word. In the Greek, charax or chirax, however you want to say it. Charax, chirax, whatever. From charasso, to sharpen to a point, through the idea of scratching, which a pale or stake, a palisade, which represents the needle that they will use to insert this mark of the beast into your skin. Then you have a root word to that, which is the Greek word grapho, which means to write with reference to the form of the letter, to delineate or form letters on a tablet, parchment, paper, or other material, to write with reference to the contents of the writing, to express in written characters, to commit to writing things not to be forgotten, write down, record. So these things are going to be recorded. The records will be on this microchip, which will be inserted by this utensil here, or this instrument here. which is the Karax or the Pale or the Palisade, which is the modern day oil used to push that mark of the beast, the microchip, into people's hands, brains, or whatever the case may be. So it's important to know about the record keeping of these contraptions that are used to what? Store data. They have a limited amount of space on it, but guess what? They're connected to a bigger data system, which is these computers that can have more information on a particular individual if they need it. So that's why it says, however, they would all be centralized in a digital platform co-managed by the federal, state, and private companies. And this is why they're pushing all of this. It says, according to data provided by the Pandemic Control Council, it would be decided from time to time which area should be subject to lockdown and for how long. Remember what Aaron Russo said, that Nick Rockefeller told him, that if you act up, they can shut your tip down. Until you what? Until you come to your senses, and play by their rules. Because now you're their subject, you're their slave. So you are indebted to them. It says this, in summary, is the plan the Rockefeller Foundation wants to implement in the United States and beyond, because it's going to be a global thing. It's not just going to be one country. It's going to be global. It's going to be on a global scale. It says, if it were even partially implemented, there would be further concentration of economic, we read earlier, and political power in the hands of an even narrower elite sector, to the detriment of a growing majority that would be deprived of fundamental democratic rights. And this is what they want. They want total control. Control in the hands of a few. Some call it an oligarchy, Nevertheless, it is the so-called New World Order, which is spoken of all throughout the scriptures. The operation is carried out in the name of COVID-19 control. And this pandemic, as they call it, was the perfect crisis that they needed to push this agenda forward. It says, whose mortality rate has so far been less than 0.03% of the United States population, according to the official data. But it wasn't that. It was a scare, the fear that they put on the people to be able to push this. In the Rockefeller Foundation plan, the virus is used as a real weapon, more dangerous than COVID-19 itself, which is what? The taking away of the people's rights, pushing this legislation to lock the people down and force them by this legislation to abide by the rules of Esau here in America. Because remember, you go to different empires, and what happened? Nebuchadnezzar made decrees that people had to do such and such, or they would be what? Put to death. Darius made certain decrees. Antiochus Epiphanes made a decree that the whole world should be one, that they should all come under, forget about the laws of their fathers and come under the law of the Greeks, under punishment of death if they didn't comply. So it's no different today. This is the modern day Tower of Babel, or the modern day New World Order. And if those who don't comply will get put to death. But guess what? The Lord is going to protect his. I'm going to get another precept so I won't forget it. But I want to read this first. It says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, because these decrees are unrighteous. Because if you're supposed to be able to voluntarily, do these things, why are they making it mandatory? Because they have an agenda. And their right grievances which they have prescribed. And the grievances that they're prescribing is this New World Order through this legislation that they're pushing. To turn aside the needy from judgment, which is Jake, and to take away the right from the poor of my people. because they know that the servant is borrower to the lender. And if you take that chip, you become a servant, a perpetual servant to the international bankers, that widows may be their prey and that they may rob the fatherless. And that's what it's all about. Total control. Isaiah 59 and 19. So shall they fear the name of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai from the west, which we're in the western hemisphere, and his glory from the rising of the sun, because you have brothers all over the place and Israelites all over the place watching these videos that are part of the elect. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, meaning these military type tactics, whether it's actual National Guard or FEMA troops, or as we read here, that pandemic response corps, or any other force that they're going to use to bring about this so-called New World Order and this final hurrah of Esau to cement his so-called New World Order, which they're not going to be able to do. You know, when that happens, the Spirit of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai shall lift up a standard against him. He's going to push him back. It says, and the Redeemer shall come to Zion. So in the midst of all this, the Redeemer shall come to Zion, which the Most High Yahweh is going to send Yahweh Shai and the angels to come and deliver us. And unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Now, let's go from there to the book of James 5 and 1. Go to now, ye rich men, reap and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you, because this, what they're doing, is not right. They know it's not right. They've made statements that it's not right, but they're still moving on forward with it. Because they, from the womb, they were created to be this way. Matter of fact, let's get, well, you know, you can read Isaiah 58 chapter. You know, from the womb, they're created to go astray and be wicked. Your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eating. Why are their riches corrupted and their garments moth-eating? Because of the way that they got them. They didn't get it by right. So therefore, those riches that they have will be transferred back to the rightful owners, which is us. Your gold and your silver is cankered. Why? Because you didn't get it by the right means. And the rust of them, meaning the way you got them, shall be a witness against you. And that's what's witnessing against you. Woe to them that establish a town by blood, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire, because your whole New World Order agenda is going to go up in flames once the Lord destroys this place and the land of Israel. Your dreams are going to go up in smoke. You have heaped treasures together to treasure together for the last days. And I was meditating on this last night. How these international bankers like Elon Rothschild and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, that they would always be out doing, you know, sometimes they would do certain interviews. But when's the last time you seen an interview with any of these international bankers? So it led me to believe that these international bankers are down in their bunker somewhere waiting for this whole thing to take place so that they can reemerge and take over, you know, in this new world order, this new world agenda. I was meditating on this last night. You know? So, and the scriptures tell us that once this whole thing goes down and the destruction comes, we're going to be going to these different shelters and pulling their monkey ass out and carting it right into slavery. So they have heaped treasures together for the last days. Behold, the higher of the, because they releasing some shit, you know, and they're more than likely, all of them are in their bunkers so that they won't get hit with whatever they pushed out there. Behold, the higher of the laborers, which are who? The Israelites, and any, you know, people that are working for these devils, but mainly the Israelites, who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud. And with the way they're doing it, they're keeping back by fraud because the money that they're giving is not really money to begin with. Micah 6 and 10. Are there yet treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked? And these are treasures of wickedness. These dollar bills that they give the people are nothing more than fraudulent paper notes, treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is abominable, because they're really not worth anything and they're being devalued day by day. It says, shall I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights? And this is a deceitful weight, because a dollar is not money. It is the expression of money. Money are gold and silver coins. And a dollar, whether it's $1, $5, $10, $100, $50, whatever, that is the amount of silver or gold that this paper currency is supposed to be backed by. I mean, it's backed, like Elder Pastor brought out, it's backed by the petrodollar. But as far as the money as it's supposed to be, according to the so-called Constitution, gold and silver coins, they don't have that. It says, for the rich man thereof are full of violence, and the inhabitants thereof have spoken lies, and their tongue is deceitful in their mouth. And this is what we're seeing right now. And there's going to be serious violence pushed out here because of the debt that they're calling in. You know? And they're using this pandemic as that. Therefore also will I make thee sick in smiting thee and making thee desolate because of thy sins. Thou shalt eat but not be satisfied, because you're going down, and thy casting down shall be in the midst of thee, because you're going to be, when you're about to eat, the Lord is going to rain his fury upon you, and you're going to lose everything. And thou shalt take hold and shalt not deliver, and that which thou deliverest will I give up to the sword. Thou shalt sow, but thou shalt not reap. Thou shalt tread the olives, but thou shalt not anoint thee with oil and sweet wine, but shalt not drink wine, because you're going to lose everything. So it says, behold, the hire of the laborer who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, because you're not giving the people the right money. Jeremiah 22:13, woe unto them that buildeth his house by unrighteousness, and that's you international bankers, and his chambers by wrong, that useth his neighbor's service without wages. And this is not real wages. That's not real wages. It says, and giveth him not for his work. Now let's go from there to Malachi 3 and 5. I'm sorry, go back. Malachi 3 and 5. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, that's Esau, and against the adulterers, that's Esau, and against false swearers, Esau, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widow and the fathers. These things the Most High hates when you do disservice to the widows and the fatherless. That's in the law. And that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua of hosts. So you're going to be dealt with severely. Inside joke. So going back, James 5 and 4. I'm sorry. It says, behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth, and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he does not resist you. And that's why the Lord is coming to avenge us of our enemies. Shall not the Lord avenge his elect that cry unto him day and night? So the future is here. That's the name of the title is. The future is here. We just seeing the prophecies just playing out. And this is the perfect crisis, that they have. And they don't, from what it's looking like, they're not planning on letting it go. So, we'll be straight. All we have to do is just keep on fighting and keep on doing what we've been doing, and the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua will stand and fight for us. So with that, I pray that your brothers have been edified. Until the next time I say, Shalom. Measure that is abominable, because they're really not worth anything, and they're being devalued day by day. It says, shall I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights? And this is a deceitful weight, because a dollar